don't know what's in the air right now, but I feel like everyone and their mother is in a reading slump right now. And like, as someone who is just coming out of one, the best thing to do, in my opinion, is to not stick to a specific TBR. Don't read things you're not in the mood for. Literally just mood read until you get out of it. So that is what we're going to be doing in today's video. My name is Julie. Welcome back to my channel. And today we're just going to be mood reading. We are going to be mood reading for an entire week. It is Friday, November 1st right now. We're going to read until Friday, November 8th. And I don't have a specific TBR or anything. I know what I want to start with, but we're just gonna go based on pure vibes. So Halloween was yesterday. Spooky season is kind of over, but it's also still fall. I live in Florida. I literally just went on a walk. That's why I'm like all shiny and sweaty. But it is literally 81 degrees outside, so it's not really feeling like fall. However, fall books usually help me get in the mood for fall. So we're going to be starting with a fall little rom-com. This is Pumpkin Spice and Poltergeist by Ali K. Mulford and K.L. Morrison. I've never read anything from these two authors, but this is like a sapphic paranormal rom-com and I'm super excited to get into this. I do have the description pulled up because I don't know like off the top of my head what this is about. I haven't heard anything about it. I've really only seen it in the Kindle store, but I do have it pulled up on Goodreads right now, so we're gonna read that to you. It says, the last thing apothecary witch Jordan had on her mind was romance, but when she got witchy wasted, she cracked open the coffin of her love life and conjured the ghost of her ex-girlfriend. Jordan is in for a spell of trouble now that the snarky specter is determined to haunt her until she finds someone new. Enter Harlow, the new girl in town who just wants a job in her sister's cafe, but she discovers that the spooky town of Maple Hollow is more than just a gimmick. Real magic lives here, but after run-ins with vampires and one too many grave cafe blunders, she's ready to hop on a broomstick and fly out of town, until she finds herself falling under the spell of an enchanting witch who asks her on a date. As sparks fly and cauldrons bubble, will this unlikely pair brew up a love potion that defies the ghostly odds, or will Jordan's shady ex be the ultimate buzzkill to their budding romance? Grab your broomstick and buckle up for a cozy sapphic paranormal rom-com that's sure to cast a spell on your heart this fall season. This has a 3.91 star rating on Goodreads with 4,000 ratings. The top reviews that I saw were all 5 or 4 stars, and it just sounds like a really quick, easy, fun time. It is like literally 218 pages, so I feel like I can finish this today. Without further ado though, we are just gonna get straight into reading. So I feel like it's time for an update because I've started the next book and I am literally gonna binge it if I do not update you guys. But it is 2 days later. It is Sunday, November 3rd, I think. I was just super busy yesterday. I didn't end up reading anything else, but I did end up finishing Pumpkin Spice and Poltergeist on Friday. So I feel like I already talked a little bit about like what it was about when I read the Goodreads review, but basically it's following this girl named Jordan. She is a witch. She works and lives at an apothecary in this small town. At the beginning of the book, we follow her like summoning the spirit of her ex-girlfriend who passed away, and it is the 1-year anniversary of their breakup, but a couple months after the breakup, her girlfriend, like her ex-girlfriend named Lou, got in a car accident and passed away. And so whenever she's summoning her, she's kind of just wanting closure. The case wasn't really like fully fleshed out. Some things were like kind of like murky, and so she never really got closure on like Lou and the end of their relationship and kind of like what happened to Lou in order to cause that car crash. So we are getting like a small subplot in Jordan's point of view with like Lou being there as a ghost, because Lou is basically stuck there because they think that since Jordan summoned Lou asking for closure, that means that Lou needs to help Jordan find someone else to fall in love with, like to get over her. But there's also this plot line of like finding out what happened to cause Lou's death and this like whole mystery kind of thing as like another plot in addition to like finding Jordan someone else to be in love with. And then that plot line brings in Harlow, who is like really bad at holding down a job. Stuff has happened, and so she's moving in with her sister to work at her sister's cafe. And while she's working at her cafe, one day her sister sends her to go get some cloves for like a customer's drink. So she goes to the apothecary to buy some, meets Jordan. Lou kind of like sets them up basically, but no one else can see Lou because Lou's like a poltergeist, but only can be seen from Jordan's point of view. So we're getting like dual point of view and it's switching every chapter. So Jordan asks Lou out, they go on a date, and like I just did not like buy into their relationship, like into the emotional connection between them, because it wasn't on the page. Literally on their first date, they go and get ice cream. Harlow is like, oh, like we had like hours of conversation, but I'm like, you literally didn't give us any dialogue. Like genuinely everything that they were like talking to each other about, every single like conversation between them was just about like the world building of the town. Like we didn't get anything super personal to them or like any emotional connection whatsoever, in my opinion. So I really didn't buy into the romance portion. And this book also takes place over the span of like literally like a week. So it goes from like them being strangers to being in love, and like I just genuinely like didn't see any of that. Like from their point of view, the only thing they really talk about is like, oh, her smile's so beautiful, oh, her hair is so nice, oh, she's so pretty. And like, yeah, that's great, but also like, do you even know anything about each other? Like in my opinion, that just was not built up well. I didn't really buy into it, but I did like the mystery aspect of the whole book, like how they were trying to figure out what happened to Lou. And overall, I think like it was just really cozy vibes, but I just didn't really buy into the romance, and that kind of hindered my enjoyability of it, because I was like, hey, like we genuinely don't know anything about either of you, and like it's just so, it's like the pacing was a bit weird, and I feel like the world building wasn't super extensive. Like I don't think it needed to be, but they kind of glanced past world building at some points. They were like, oh, like that's a story for another day, or I'll tell you later on. And it's just like, why don't you just tell us? Like this book could have been a little longer, but I feel like the parts that were long didn't need to be long. The epilogue was so dragged out, and I was like, we genuinely don't even need an epilogue to this. Like we don't need to know this, and it could have been further in the future. It didn't make sense to me, and I feel like the romance as itself was not built up enough, like in comparison to like the other plots going on. I enjoyed like the representation, I enjoyed the world and the coziness and all of like the mystery aspects of the book, but then on the other hand, I just feel like the romance could have been built up better. So I am gonna give this like a 3 stars. I would recommend it for like a cozy fast read, but the romance was not built up, in my opinion. Like I really didn't know anything about either of the characters and why they liked each other. So that's all I have to say about that book, because I've been talking for way too long. I ended up starting the last book like last night, and I'm just so enamored by it, and that is Boy Parts by Eliza Clark. This is on my TBR for the month, so I really wanted to get to it, but it's also just been calling to me. It's following this girl named Irina. She lives in Newcastle and she works at this bar. At the beginning of the book, we also learn that in her free time she likes to like photograph people. She's a photographer, but her photographs lean more on like the explicit art kind of side. She sells them like online, so she takes more explicit photos of men, and typically like men she finds average looking and in more of like a sexual nature. And so there's like that plot line, and at the beginning of the book she's going to work at this bar that she works at. This lady comes in, she ends up being the mother of one of the boys that Irina was taking photographs of, who told Irina and showed like passport proof of him being 20 years old, but he's actually 16. And so Irina shows her all the proof. She's like, I don't want anything to do with this. He told me he was 20, he had proof. And then she takes the woman out of like the bar, but the woman ends up hitting Irina. And then Irina ends up getting a 6-week paid sabbatical from work because she was assaulted by a customer. And so she is like using that time to explore this exhibition that she was offered to have her work portrayed in like a very famous gallery in London. So we're kind of like following her in that journey. She has like this one friend named Flo who's like literally obsessed with her, like in love with her. And so like we get point of views from like Irina reading like Flo's blog post, which is always like about her, and it's just like kind of like a campy book. Like it's like weird girl lit, like it's like a dumpster fire that you can't look away from, and I'm like actually eating it up because I'm like, wow, this is just so like unserious, this is so unreal, like no one thinks like this. But it's also like sometimes Irina will say something and I'm like, that's so real, but then she's literally a terrible person. Like everything else she's like saying or doing, I'm like, girl, like what are you doing? But it's so entertaining, and I love literary fiction like that, where it's like you're like a terrible person and I'm watching a dumpster fire and I just can't look away. Like it's just so good. Overall, it's just like following Irina. There's a lot of like partying and like drugs and stuff like that, and it's just like really entertaining for some reason. Like I don't know what it is and like how to describe it otherwise, but it's just really entertaining and I'm really eating it up. I'm literally 30% in already. It is so entertaining. I just can't look away from it. And I like don't think Irina's a girl person. Like she's not a character that you would like enjoy reading about. Like it actually pains me, some of the things that she says and thinks. And like also like all of the characters in this just kind of suck and they're all like not great people, but it's also entertaining. So but I digress. It's just really entertaining and I'm just gonna keep reading it because I can't put it down. I need to take a long, deep breath because I finished Boy Parts by Eliza Clark, and I feel like this book review is not going to be good because I genuinely do not know how to articulate the way that this book made me feel. It was sickening, it was upsetting, it was out of pocket, it was unpredictable. It was just like literally the stuff that was happening. It's kind of like giving Patrick Bateman in American Psycho and also Black Swan Descent into Madness and drugs and sexuality and photography and explicitity, and it's just a lot. Like a lot of stuff went down in this book. It's definitely one that you need to check trigger warnings before you read because a lot of heavy stuff is in this book, and while it is a satire, it's still written as factual, if that makes sense. Like I know books that are satire are written satirically, but when you're reading it, it's still just a story, even if you know it's a satire. Like I said, it follows this girl named Irina, and she is an explicit photographer. She takes pictures of men, and they're usually more like sexually leaning pictures and very explicit. As a character though, she is very manipulative. She's like a terrible person, basically. She's very unlikable. She says a lot of terrible things. She treats people horribly. She does terrible stuff. Like some of the stuff she does is so unforgivable, so literally criminal. Like you need to be in jail. Like I would suggest therapy, but I feel like you would probably make your therapist clock out and like literally go to another therapist right after your session because I feel like you would traumatize them. And so it's like literally so unhinged. I don't even know how to explain this book because it's just like a descent into chaos induced by drugs and also her sociopathivity. Is that even a word? Like she's literally a sociopath basically, and just like she's so out of pocket. But this is a satire, but it's like I don't even know. This has like so much commentary on like I guess the perception of women because she wants to be taken so like seriously. She wants to be taken as a threat. However, the men in her life are not perceiving her as a threat because she's a woman. However much stuff she does to them, like even though she is literally doing like forgivable crimes, she's like doing things against people's consent and just doing very terrible things. She is a woman, so they don't perceive her as a threat as much as they should because sexism. So that is something that like obviously fuels her manipulation. Like she thinks that she can do whatever she wants. She can get away with anything she wants to do because she is a very manipulative person and she can just get people to do whatever she wants and be complicit. And the stuff she does to like the men in her life and the people that she attracts, like just like the stuff she does to people is literally horrible. Like there is like no redeeming qualities about this woman. Like I know some people on TikTok, I like looked it up to see what other people were saying and they were like, oh, she's kind of like relatable. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like in what way? Because I know like some of the things she says about men, they're kind of campy. Like I'm not even gonna lie. Like sometimes I'm like, oh girl, real purr. But like at the same time, like the stuff she actually does, terrible. I know this is a satire and like I don't think you can say like I support women's rights and women's wrong in this book because they are very wrongs. Like I say that and like Rin from the Poppy War is like one of my favorite characters of all time, but we're just gonna not talk about this. And like the book itself was very well written. It was very entertaining. I couldn't put it down. Like literally it was a dumpster fire that I could not look away from. I was just flying through it, flying through it. And I literally just like never looked at the page count, which is something I can't say about my recent reads because even though I enjoyed them, like I still felt like, oh, like where am I at? Like how far in am I at? This book, I didn't do that. So when it ended, I was literally blown away. I was like, that's it? What do you mean? It was just so good. It was so entertaining, but it was terrible. Like the content and everything that happens in this book is very bad. But like I don't even know what else to say because I feel like without explaining some things in detail and spoiling some of the book, I can't really talk about it fully. However, just know it's unhinged, it's sickening. This book was crazy and also very entertaining, and just like also like I felt like ill to my stomach reading some of the stuff that happened in this book. And I feel like I'm not someone who like gets bothered very easily, but some of the stuff that happened, I was just like, wow, like she is like crazy. Like she does some of the most unhinged things I've ever seen in my entire life. I feel like this is one of the most like unsettling books that I've read, and it is a satire. So do with that information what you will. I don't really know what else to say about this. It was just very like a time. It was a time for sure. And I like enjoyed it as a book, but like what it is like pretty bad, if you know what I mean. Like I hope you know what I'm saying. I don't even know if I know what I'm saying myself. But that being said, I feel like I'm still in a literary fiction mood. Like I feel like the writing in this just made me want to read more character-driven books and maybe not like a fantasy right now. So I think we're gonna jump into another literary fiction, Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. This is on my like TBR for the month, and so I was just like, you know what? I'm also interested in reading this, so I'm just gonna pick this up. Sally Rooney's Normal People is one of my favorite books of all time. I love that book to death. I just really enjoyed it. And so this is another one of her books that I have not read yet. It's following two best friends. They end up meeting this woman at a like poetry reading, I think. They're like writing majors in Dublin, Ireland, and they meet this girl at a poetry reading, and she's like one of the famous like authors, writers that's like at this place, and they end up getting like kind of swept up in her world, and one of the best friends ends up like kind of like falling for her husband and like her entire life. And so it is like an affair literary fiction to my knowledge. Like it heavily deals with like affairs and just like kind of like very messy from what I've seen and heard about this book. And I also know that it has like sapphic tones, themes, I don't even know, because I think the best friends like had kind of like a past together. And so I'm very interested to see where this goes. I feel like that's really all I know about it. Like it sounds like I know a lot, but at the same time I'm like, it's Sally Rooney, so really what do you know about this book? It seems kind of more plot driven than Normal People in a way, because I feel like there's more characters. Like I feel like in Normal People there's obviously a lot of characters, but it heavily focuses on Marianne and Connell, so it's like kind of like their lives and how it's like kind of wrapped up in each other. So I'm wondering if it's going to be the same for the best friends, or if the added couple will be like more of a prominent part in this book. I don't know. That being said, I just really, really want to read this. So I think I'm literally just going to start it now. I don't know how far I'm going to get into it, but it just sounds like a really entertaining time. I feel like I just need more messy lit fics in my life, and I feel like I'm pretty well into the mood for this, thanks to Boy Parts. So we're just going to start this. Hopefully it's super messy, because the drama in Boy Parts, eating it up, even though it was literally terrible, but not a terrible book. It was a great book, but it was terrible in the themes and like, you know, I don't even know if I'm saying things in a correct manner, but like, I really want to read this. So I'm going to start this now. Yeah, now. Hi guys, it's the next day, November 4th. It's a Monday and I am sick. Yay. I was sick yesterday. It just like wasn't affecting my talking, and it was really bad this morning. Like I barely could talk, but I've been taking medicine and stuff like that, so it's just like it's like my throat, and yeah, it's just annoying. But basically I've just been like chilling all day. I am gonna get back into reading Conversations with Friends. I read up until like part 2 last night basically, and it's following these friends. I thought it was gonna be like dual point of view, kind of like how Normal People was, but this is from the point of view of Frances, who is one of like the best friends that I talked about. She's kind of described as cool-headed and darkly observant. She's kind of like relatable, and like she kind of reminds me of Marianne, but like a little less like personality, because like she's kind of like one of the she I don't know, like I don't know how to describe how she's relatable. It's just like some of the things she says in her mind are like very intrusive thoughts, and I'm like, okay, real, but like also like concerning, but also like she's just funny, I guess, like in her mind. I feel like I just love how Sally Rooney books are so like dry humor, dry conversation sometimes, and it's just interesting. We are following like Frances, and she kind of like got herself into this affair with the married man of the writer that her and her best friend met, and her best friend Bobby like was also kind of pining after the wife, like the woman that they met that's like the famous poet and or famous writer or whatever. And so it's just kind of messy, like it's following them, but then also like Bobby wasn't aware of like the affair going on and stuff. So I feel like it's very like their relationship, like between Bobby and Frances, like their best friendship is not very healthy. Like they had a past, they were dating for a while and then they broke up, and like I just feel like it's not like I don't know if it's like necessarily toxic, but they do a lot of manipulative things, or like kind of like punish each other for stuff, and I'm like, this is not healthy necessarily. And also like the affair thing is just also not healthy, because I'm like, this dude like barely likes you, girl. Like it's just like weird all around. Everyone's super awkward. But we just got to a point where where she's talking on the phone to the guy that she's having an affair with, Frances's, and he says, I know, classic me. And it's just making me think of like Marianne being, whenever he's like, oh, you look well, in Normal People, when Connell's like, Marianne, you look well, and then she's like, I know classic me came to college and got pretty, and then he's like, no, you are always pretty, very pretty, you're beautiful. And I'm like, it's just, I love them. I love Normal People. This isn't hitting as hard as Normal People, but I'm still enjoying it. Like, I think maybe I was more in the mood for literary fiction when I started it last night, and now I'm kind of like in the mood for fantasy again. So I don't know, I'm enjoying it, but it's not like a 5-star. But also Normal People wasn't a 5-star the first time I read it. It was like a 3, and then I just never stopped thinking about it and reread it, and it was a 6-star. So I don't know, maybe we'll see. I'm just gonna continue reading it. Yeah. Bye-bye. I just, like, it's literally 5 seconds later. I just love, like, the dry humor that Sally Rooney writes. Like, they're talking on the phone still, and they're talking about, like, other people, and then he says something about his dad being right-wing, and she was like, is your dad actually right-wing, or was that a joke? And he was like, oh no, he's a real wealth creator, hates women, absolutely detests the poor, so you can imagine he loves me, his camp actor son. And then Frances starts laughing. She's like, you're not camp, you're aggressively heterosexual, you even have a 21-year-old mistress. You're literally joking. It says the next day our friend Marianne came back from Brooklyn, and she told us about all the celebrities she met. And then they're talking for a little bit with Marianne, and I'm like, literally after I was just talking about Marianne Sheridan. I don't know if it's the same one. I looked it up, and people were like, oh no, every Sally Rooney novel is distinct and takes place in its own world, and this Marianne's different. But then also someone on Reddit was like, they said they celebrated Marianne's birthday in December, and then in Normal People her birthday is like in December or something like that. So they're like, oh, it's evidence towards this Marianne being the same one. But I feel like if it was, there would have been like more talk about like Frances and Bobby in Normal People. I just think it's coincidence, but it's also like literally gagging me. Like, I'm just staring at Normal People across my room, just wanting to read that again. But I'm not going to do it because I already reread it this year, and I am not going to put myself through that at this moment in time. Probably, maybe I will reread it by the end of the year again. That'd be crazy. Hi guys, so it is the next day. I finished Conversation with Friends yesterday. I just didn't update you guys because I finished it during a power outage in my area, so there was no light, literally just a candle and like a book light that would have been able to be me. So I was like, no. But I did finish it. I think I'm gonna land on like a 3.5. I don't know, because I really didn't dislike this book. The first half was super entertaining to me, and I was like really in it. And then the next day I woke up and finished the rest of it, and I was just like, I don't know if it's because I'm sick or like and just bored, but I don't know. I just, something about the second half wasn't doing it for me. I think it was a lot like more sad. It talked about like more like hard topics and stuff, and that's not like to say that that was like boring or anything. Like, I think it was handled well. It was just also like something about it wasn't like super entertaining to me. That sounds really bad to say, but like, you know what I mean? Like, it just wasn't like as entertaining and dramatic as the beginning of the book, and I feel like overall this book could have been more dramatic. But I do really love Sally Rooney's writing. Like, I'm gonna read her other books. Normal People, it was so good. I just didn't connect to the characters in this one as much. Like, I still like them, even though they're all a bit unlikable. I didn't like the married couple man, like the MMC in this book. Like, I did not like him, but I liked Frances enough. Like, she's a little bit unlikable, but at the same time she's kind of relatable in some aspects, and then she's also just like kind of mean sometimes, but I like her. And I liked Bobby. I think they kind of like have a weird dynamic because they did have a past and they're kind of still in love with each other, and it's kind of just this whole thing where it's like you guys are kind of toxic. It's like a secret third thing, but it's not at the time, and it's weird. And something about this, just, it didn't hit for me, but I did really enjoy like the writing style. Like, I love Sally Rooney's writing, like the way that she has like such creative, brilliant like analogies, and just the way that she like still incorporates like things that are happening in real life that like are politically very important and just stuff like that is really enjoyable. I really like her writing, and I liked being in her world. Just the story didn't like encapture me this time. Like with Normal People, I think I was just less connected to the characters. So I think I'm gonna go with like a 3.5. I don't think it was bad. Like, I'd still recommend it if you like a fair literary fiction. I just don't think I do. It's not one that I've read that much, but like, I like Sally Rooney's writing. I like, most of the time I like her unlikable characters. I just don't think I like this as much as Normal People, and at the end of it I was kind of just like, okay, I kind of want it to be over. That being said, I didn't start anything last night. Well, that's a lie. I started Gideon the Ninth, and I read like 30 pages and I fell in love. It just sounds so good so far. I immediately ordered book 2, but we're not going to read that in this video because I kind of want to make its own video. Like I kind of want to make a reading vlog reading the Locked Tomb series, so we're not going to read that in this video. So I try to start something else. I'm still a little sick, if you can tell. Like, I'm like mostly feeling better, but like I still feel like I'm talking weird. So I started a fairy loot book. This is on my fall TBR, one that I haven't started yet. So I started Cruel Illusions. This is basically like a magician, vampire, YA kind of coming of age. It follows this girl named Ava. Her mom was murdered whenever she was younger, and so her and her brother have been bouncing around foster homes, and her mom was actually killed by a vampire in this world. And I guess the vampires, like, they were kind of like emerged in the world, but then one of them ended up killing like a little kid, so they kind of had to go into hiding. And so she hasn't seen a vampire in like the 10 years since her mom was murdered. And one day she like goes to this carnival kind of thing and to see a magic act because her parents were like magicians who like performed and stuff, and they ended up both passing away in very suspicious ways. And so she goes to this carnival, and then she gets brought on stage. She notices just a lot of weird things, and then she goes backstage and like sneaks back there trying to like call them out on something. And then they're like, hey, like, you should join this competition because you have magic in your blood and something like that. I literally don't know, but it's just the writing wasn't doing it for me. It wasn't like bad, like it felt very like stereotypical YA fantasy, which I don't dislike. Like, I love YA fantasy, I read a lot of it, but it's just, it wasn't like something that I really cared to continue. Like, I didn't dislike her point of view. I didn't like dislike where it was going as a story. I feel like it was interesting. It's just not something I don't think that I would care to continue, especially for an extra 400 pages, because I read like 100 pages of this, and then I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna like sell this book because I really don't think that I'm someone who's gonna enjoy it that much, and I feel like it could be better placed in someone else's hands. Because there was like this one thing that one of the girls said, and I was just like, oh, that's kind of stereotypical. And then there was like a love triangle building, and I was like, I don't like it. So I'm gonna unhaul this book. It is gonna be on my Pango, which is linked below if you want to shop there. I have some books posted that I'm unhauling, but yeah, I just don't think this is for me. So I DNF'd it at 100 pages. And then I was like, why not just start another fairy loot book? Because I'm literally just trying to find something to start, but like, I didn't really know if I wanted to start anything like on my TBR because I wanted something that had an audiobook on Libby. And so I tried another fairy loot book, and maybe it's just the point I'm at right now. This one I read about like 70 pages, and it's entertaining so far. It's kind of like a murder mystery. We're following two characters. They have like a past. They used to date. One girl, her name is Roz, and then the other one, I think his name is Damien. And they're both like in this world. I'm just not understanding the world right now. It's like to do with like saints and like disciples, or I don't really know. I'm not really understanding it right now, but I do think I would enjoy this book because the writing I was enjoying so far. So I think I'm just gonna put this down and pick it up like later on whenever I'm more in the mood. So I'm not unhauling this because it's like a soft DNF. Like, I enjoyed the female main character's point of view a lot. Like, she's kind of like snarky and she's like revengeful, so I think I'm gonna enjoy her point of view. So I'm just gonna put this back down. But yeah, I don't know. I think I would enjoy this. It's just not the right time right now, and I don't want to read it when it's not the time on purpose. So that being said, I still don't know what to do because I have like 3 books on my TBR for the month, not including the Locked Tomb series. We have The Bridge Kingdom by Daniel L. Jensen, Long Live Evil by Sarah Reese Brennan, and A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms by George R. R. Martin. I don't know that I'm going to read this one because it doesn't have an audiobook on Libby. The only one that I have the audiobook for Long Live Evil right now. I just don't know if I'm in the mood for it. So I think I'm kind of between The Bridge Kingdom and Long Live Evil, but I don't know because The Bridge Kingdom, I don't have an audiobook for it. And then Long Live Evil I do, but it's the first book in a series and it's an unfinished series. So I'm kind of confused right now where to start. Like, I really just want to read Gideon the Ninth, but I want to make it its own video, so I'm not going to do that in this video. I think I'm going to read the first chapter of Long Live Evil and The Bridge Kingdom, and then I'll come back and tell you what I decide to read. But I need to go sit outside because I was like bed rotting yesterday, and I'm probably going to have like really low vitamin D or something like that. So I'm going to read the first chapter of those two, and then I'll let you know what I start. back. I read like 2 pages of each book, like not even the whole chapter, but I did decide on one. I'm gonna read Long Live Evil by Sarah Reese Brennan. I just think that since it's like kind of a standalone at this point, it's like part of a series, but the rest aren't out yet, that this would be the better choice, and it also has an audiobook on Libby. So I'm gonna start this. To my knowledge, it follows this girl named Ray. She has like a chronic illness and she is dying, but she gets a second chance at living by doing like a magical bargain, which would send her into the world of her favorite fantasy novel, and she takes it, and when she gets there, she finds out that she's actually like the villainess in this tale. Like, I just think that's such an interesting spin, because I feel like whenever the trope happens where they like get sent into a world, they're kind of like the heroes. And so I just find it very interesting that she like is actually the villainess in this tale. So I'm very excited to start this. The writing from what I saw so far was kind of entertaining. Like the way it started off, I was like, oh no, this is gonna be confusing. But it was just like a piece from like the actual book that her sister was reading to her, and then it went into like her actual real life reality, I guess, her point of view. So seems very interesting. I'm just gonna go ahead and try this. I'm probably gonna change into something more attuned to the outside weather and then go sit outside and start this. And I will see you guys when I do. Okay guys, I don't know what's going on. I am about 40-ish pages into Long Live Evil by Sarah Reese Brennan, and I just need to talk about it. I'm kind of considering DNFing it at this point, but I think we're gonna give it like another try. I was gonna say chance and shot at the same time. But basically, this is following this girl named Ray. She's 20 years old. She was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Her body's shutting down and she is slowly dying. And so she lives in the hospital, and one day whenever she wakes up, we learn that there's this woman like sitting there, and the woman's kind of like elusive. She's saying a bunch of like random stuff, and Ray's kind of concerned. She's like, oh, where is this lady from? Like, who is this? And then the lady's like, if you can go into this world, which is the world of her favorite fantasy novel, she's like, if you can go in this world and get the flower that's like a flower that only blooms once a year in like the center of the castle, the kingdom or whatever, then you can wake up cured from your chronic illness. And she's like, what are you talking about? She doesn't believe the woman because it's literally just a random woman sitting there, and she's like, thinks she's talking all crazy. And so Ray actually gets transported into this world, and she wakes up in the body of a villainess. So she's kind of like taking this opportunity as a villainess to try and complete this mission of getting the flower. And she has like a guard and a maid who are like following her around. So she tries to convince them to be like a part of like her villain group and kind of just help her to survive, because the day after she gets there, she is scheduled to have like an execution, because like her stepsister, the villainess's stepsister, kind of like tricked the king into executing the villainess, if that makes sense. I feel like it's kind of like dense. The writing is not like difficult to read like in a high fantasy sense. It's just difficult to read. Like, I don't know what it about the writing style is just not working for me, but like it's literally making me mad reading it, because I'm like, literally, what is she trying to say and why is she saying it like that? Because it's just like a personal thing, I think. But I don't know, I looked up reviews and a lot of them are really good, but then there's also some negative reviews that also said things about the writing style. And so I don't know if I should like DNF this or continue trying. Like, I feel like I should try and read to at least page 70, because I feel like that a lot of people were like, yeah, it takes you a lot of time to get through the first 60 pages. I was sitting there just so confused, because not only is the writing confusing, but the tone is confusing, because we're in like multiple point of views. We've got in like Ray's point of view, who's the main character, and then Ray's maid, the villainess's maid. And so it's just very confusing. The tonal aspect of Ray's point of view, she'll be like saying like a joke. It's like a very niche joke. Like, she'll make a Taylor Swift reference or like a Rihanna reference, and then she instantly goes into like how the chronic illness was very traumatic for her. And it's like, I understand like that. I feel like her references are very like chronically online or whatever you would say, because it makes sense for her character, because she's been living in the hospital for the past couple of years. The only people she sees on a daily basis is like her 16-year-old sister and like older people in the hospital, and then I guess her interactions mainly come from online. So I feel like in that aspect, it's very genius, and it makes a lot of sense why it would be like that, but I'm not really enjoying reading it. It's kind of like cringing me out at some aspects. Like, I don't think we're supposed to like take it too seriously, the stuff she's saying, because like she's in this fantasy world and she's like perceiving the other people as just characters and not like people, which I mean, she's in this world and she's kind of just treating them as characters and not like how you should treat an actual person. And I know when I say that it's literally a fictional world, but like that's how I'm reading it from her perspective. And something about the writing is just too dense for me. I'm not really understanding it like I want to, but I'm only like 40 something pages in, so I might try and read like at least until page like 70 and then decide if I want to DNF it. But so far I'm not enjoying the writing style, and I don't know what it is about it. It just feels so like clunky in my opinion, and so I'm very disappointed because I feel like the plot itself is very intriguing. I'm just not enjoying the execution. And I don't know if that's just a me thing, but I also don't want to waste my time reading books I don't want to read. So I'm going to read like a little bit more. I know that's literally contradictive to what I literally just said, but I'm going to read a little bit more and then I'll update you guys. I don't know. Maybe I should try the audiobook, but I also just want to like read, so I don't know. I'm gonna try reading like maybe 30 pages and then I'll update you guys. Okay guys, so I'm about to go cut my bangs. I am listening to the audiobook version now because it's like in my library. I am about, I think like probably around 80 or 90 pages, and I'm liking it more now. But there's just something that's still not like giving like high rating to me. Like it's enjoyable and I think it's funny, like it's kind of camp, but I'm not like obsessed with it, and I'm not like super interested in like some of the characters, but I'm like enjoying it enough that I think I'm gonna continue reading it as like an audiobook, but I don't think I'm gonna pick it up physically. So I will continue reading it as like an audiobook, like listening to it throughout the week, but I think I'm gonna pick up another book. I don't know if I'm in the mood for The Bridge Kingdom. I might try and start it later, but I might also just start another book on my Kindle or on my physical TBR. So I'm just gonna do some stuff that I need to get done, listen to Long Live Evil, and then I will update you guys on what I start later. So it is the next day. I started The Serpent and the Wings last night, and I literally didn't read much of it. I was so stressed about the election and fucking Trump won, so. Being said, we really need some escapism today, so I am just gonna continue reading The Serpent and the Wings tonight. It's following this girl named Oriah. Whenever she was younger, her family was supposedly slaughtered by like during a civil war or something like that, and so she was adopted by like the high leader, who was a vampire, of one of the 3 main vampire houses, and he kind of raised her as like his adopted daughter, and she is like a human, but she's living in a world of vampires because this world is like humans and vampires, but they're usually like not together, like they're kind of separated. But basically she's competing in this tournament in order to survive, like in order to keep her survival, and it's kind of like Hunger Games in the sense there's a bunch of trials and it's kind of like a fight to the death kind of thing at some points, where she has to like go into this thing and try and survive from these vampires, but she's a human. I mean, that's not the plot of the Hunger Games, but it's like trials, and like the opening, I don't know how far I'm in, probably a couple chapters, but there was like an opening where they had to like survive the night or whatever with other vampires and like everybody in one greenhouse or something like that, and it was reminding me of Hunger Games in the sense that like Katniss used to go out and then come like back and hide in her hiding spot or like whatever and try and separate from people after getting what she needed to get done. So that part reminded me of the Hunger Games, and I don't know, I'm just so I don't even know what I'm saying right now, but basically it's just like a trials with like vampires, and it's a romantasy because Oriah, she is gonna have to partner with one of these vampire dudes who's super powerful or whatever in order to get her survival. So yeah, I don't know, that's all I'm gonna say for now. I'm just gonna probably just sit here and binge it for a while because I just not messing with reality today. So I'm going to do that, and I will update you guys if I have an update. Alright guys, so it is the next day. I was just feeling like a hater yesterday. It was a day for mourning, so I did not update you guys at all, honestly. I kind of just bed-botted for the day and doom scrolled and read, and that's literally all I did. It was not great. But that being said, I did finish The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. I'm still sick if you could tell, but this I'm gonna give it 3 stars. I think I already went over what this is about, but it's basically just following this girl. Her name is Araya. When she was younger, she was orphaned. And one of the heads of like the 3 vampire households in this world, because it is a world with vampires and humans, one of the heads finds Araya, he takes her in, and he kind of raises her as his own. He raises her to be very cautious of vampires and to like kind of instill in her that vampires are always trying to kill her, that she needs to be on like high alert, and that she just needs to be very cautious, and that they don't have much self-control. And so throughout her life, she's kind of just trained for this competition because she's always felt weaker compared to vampires and kind of just been scared of them her entire life. So she knows that once this competition rolls around, she will have the chance to compete, and if she wins, then she can ask for a wish from one of the goddesses that made vampires. And she plans to ask for a bond with her father that would give her immense power and basically make her so that she's not as vulnerable to vampires. And so that's kind of like her motivation for going into this trial. And the trials, there's like a couple of them. It spans a couple of months or weeks or something like that. I forgot what I said. But she has to go into these trials. But during like the first night of the trials, she ends up killing one of these vampires because he killed someone who was close to her. And after that, she knows that she needs protection because she is very injured. Something happened. She gets attacked. And it's just like a lot of stuff goes down. And she needs the protection of another vampire who is very strong. And one of them offers her protection, and he's actually the love interest, Rain. And so they kind of have to like reluctantly ally with each other in order to get through the competition and for her to not die before like the end of the competition. So they, I guess, reluctantly ally. It's kind of like a close proximity romantic-y kind of thing with trials. The trials I felt like were very kind of like, not very, but like they were reminiscent of the Hunger Games because it was like more high stakes, like in a fight to the death kind of thing. I thought that it was very interesting because some of the scenes I felt like were heavily inspired by the Hunger Games. Like, I'm not trying to say she copied her at all, but like I feel like in art a lot of the times you take inspiration from other things. So I'm not trying to say anything like, oh, she copied her or whatever, but there were some scenes in here where I was like, okay, she really enjoyed that scene in the Hunger Games. She wanted to rewrite it. So overall, I liked the main character, Oriya. I feel like she was just like someone who like stood her ground. She stood on business. Like, she knew what she wanted to do and what she needed to do to survive. She wasn't like naive, and she didn't like give in like easily. Throughout the novel, she did kind of like open up to people more, but I feel like she still like knew her worth. She still knew what she needed to do to survive, and she didn't like let other people dictate what she needed to do. So I really enjoyed that because I felt like in other romances that I've read recently, I feel like the motivation kind of like dwindles down whenever the romance plot goes up, and I didn't feel like that happened here. Like, I feel like it was also more of a slow burn. Like, I don't think I would consider this like slow burn because I feel like she still did like have those feelings for him, but at the same time, like, it didn't happen till near the end. So I think it was like a solid romance to see. I could see why people like it. It's just something about it wasn't meshing for me. I just wasn't that like entertained, and it was really fast paced. It had really short chapters, but just something like, I feel like all of those come together to form something I would like, but something about it just didn't hit for me, and I'm gonna give it a 3 stars. That being said, I'm not gonna be continuing the series, but since yesterday was not the last day of this mood reading for a week, today is actually the last day. I needed to pick something else up, and I had to do like a lot of yard work earlier, so I wanted like an audiobook. And on Libby I have like the Gideon the Ninth Lock Tomb series, but I'm not starting that in this video, so I was like, okay, I need to do something else. So I got the audiobook of Light Lark on Libby, and I've already read Light Lark. I read this when it came out in 2022. I actually knew about it before then because I remember when Alex Astor, who is the author, started posting TikToks about like, would you read a book that takes place on an island that appears every 100 years, and there's like a competition and trials and stuff. And I was so sold, like immediately, like I was needing that book so bad. So this was like literally, I don't do pre-orders much, but I pre-ordered this so fast, and I read it like as soon as I received it. In 2022, I ended up giving this a 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. It follows this girl named Isla. Not Isla, it's spelled like Isla, but it's pronounced Isla. She lives in this world where there are like 6 major kingdoms, basically. They all have like their own powers. They're all kind of like elemental based. Like, there's sky, well, that's not an element, but like, you know what I mean. There's sky, sun, there's like water, celestial, like starlight, wildings, which is Isla's people, wildlings, they're like nature, and then there's like shade, like darkness kind of thing, I don't know. But there's basically these kingdoms, and every 100 years there is an island called Lightlark that appears in order for a trial competition kind of thing to happen between the rulers of all of these kingdoms, because there's a curse on every single kingdom that is preventing them from doing something. Like, for example, the sunlings cannot go in the sun. Wildlings have to eat hearts, and they also can't fall in love, which is also like not great because they're kind of like the sirens in this world. So like, and if they fall in love, like the person will die. Like a bunch of curses that are put on every single kingdom. They're all very different, but the only way for them to get rid of these curses is to go through this competition, which I think it's called the Centennial. I really don't remember. Basically a game. It takes place over the span of 100 days with all of these rulers. They go to this island called Lightlark, and they have to like kind of like lie, cheat, fight, do all this kind of stuff. And basically at the end of it, one of them is supposed to be, and with that, their entire like group of people, like all their people, will also die with them. So it is like, it's high stakes, but at the same time, like it's not high stakes until kind of like the end, but it's also like stuff happens along the way that's kind of high stakes. Overall, it's like a medium stakes, I'd say, but like it's also like the plot, like the point is high stakes. Okay, I don't know if this makes sense. The curse thing is high stakes for all of them. However, this book doesn't stress you out like high stakes, because I feel like it's kind of reminiscent of like Caraval in a sense, if that makes sense. I literally don't know what I'm saying. But I don't know, I just really enjoy like the competition aspect, because I feel like there's like a lot of partnerships, but there's also a lot of betrayal. There's like a lot of getting to know other kingdoms and getting to know like all the stuff that goes on in this world. And it's just so well written. Like the premise is so like interesting, and it's so fun, and I feel like the execution was very good. I don't know, it's just something I really enjoy. I enjoy Isla as a character. I just really like the dynamics between some of the characters. It's more gritty than I remember it being. Like, it's still a YA novel, like it's not too dark or anything, but like some of the characters, like I don't remember them speaking like that, like especially like Oro, who is the king of like Lightlark, but I don't remember him being like that sassy. Like it's just like really fun to reread this. I think I'm gonna rate it a 4.5, like definitely higher than last time, because it was really just entertaining. The audiobook is really well done, and I just really enjoy this like story. This is also like a really pretty edition, because this, like I said, I pre-ordered it and it came with pre-order incentives, which I love. It's a Barnes & Noble exclusive edition. It has like stuff on the actual hardback, which I really enjoy. And there's also page overlays. So here's Isla. Oh, it's falling out. Here's Grimm. Celeste, she's like the starling. Azul, he's the kingdom, like the sky kingdom, yes. Oro, sunling kingdom, fire power, stuff like that. And Cleo. I just think like the games is such an interesting premise, because it's not like Hunger Games where it's like a fight to the death in every single trial. It's kind of decided by each ruler, and they all pick something to do. And some of them is like trying to expose other people as like a weakness, or some of them are just trying to make themselves look better or learn about like other people's weaknesses, stuff like that. And it's just so entertaining. There's so much like betrayal, there's so much scheming, there's so much just like fun. I don't know, I literally don't know what to say. It's just really fun. It's a really quick read, and the ending, literally insane. Like I haven't finished it again because I'm like about 30 pages until the end of the book, but the first time I read this in 2022, like I literally gasped so hard at that plot twist at the end. Like it was so crazy. And I was buddy reading this with a friend, and I finished it before her, and then whenever she finished it, she was texting me like literally every single one of her thoughts, and I was like literally, it was such a fun time because we were both like so shocked at the ending. And like I understand this might not be for everyone. It is like a YA fantasy, and I know some people don't tend to like that. That being said, even though how much I love this book, the first time I read it, I literally never continued the series. It is a trilogy. The third book comes out November 12th, I think, of 2025, so like in a couple days. but I never picked up Nightbane. Like, I recently just bought this because I was like, you know what, the last book's coming out, I can finish the series, reread the first, and then get through the rest. I honestly have no idea what this is about. I want to go into the rest of the series blind because, like, I know how it ends, obviously, but I don't know where it's going to go from there because I don't really remember. So we've got Nightbane, which is the second book. I think that after I finish Lightlark, I'm gonna straight up jump into Nightbane because I really am just super intrigued. But yeah, 4.5 stars for Lightlark. I can already rate it because I already know what happens, but it's a really solid YA fantasy. It's just, if you like trials, if you like competitions, this is a great option. I really enjoy it. And then we're gonna start Nightbane right after I finish that, and then probably get to the third book, not in this video, but I will be getting to that sometime this month when it comes out because I don't want to forget what happened again. So yeah, I am just going to finish Lightlark, get straight into Nightbane. I will update you guys. I don't think we're going to finish Nightbane today because it is like 5 p.m. But I will talk to you guys when I have any updates on Nightbane. Hey guys, so it is Saturday now. I never finished Nightbane. I started it, not the day of. I started it yesterday on Friday, but I listened to the audiobook for a little bit and I'm just like not as interested as I was reading Lightlark. I'm still going to finish the series. However, I'm kind of nervous that it's not going to be a trilogy. It's going to be a series, like a 4-book series, because I keep seeing people react to like the ending of the book when they got an early copy and it seems like it's a cliffhanger for some reason. And then the author is saying she's gonna go have like a big announcement on Good Morning America on Tuesday about the series, and I don't know if it's about like an adaptation announcement, which she's already talked about, so I'm guessing it's that there's gonna be a 4th book, which if there's a 4th book, we're gonna finish Nightbane sometime this week, but I'm not gonna read the 3rd and 4th book right now, so we'll see. But that's where I'm at with that series right now. Overall, we did finish the week. We did finish mood reading, and I feel like I am mostly out of my reading slump now. I'm reading a book right now, In the Dream House by Carmen Marina Machado, and I'm really enjoying it. So I feel like we were successful on that front. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do whatever you want to do. My Goodreads is linked down below, as well as some of my other socials if you want to follow me on other platforms. I love seeing what people are reading on Goodreads. It's literally so fun. So if you want to follow me on Goodreads, that'll be linked below. My Pango is linked below. I'm unhauling a bunch of books. I'm going to have like an unhaul video coming out soon because I've just kind of like been less attached to some of the books on my shelves, and I'm like, okay, they need to go to a better home. So that's kind of where we're at right now. So thank you for watching this video. I will see you guys in the next one.